All right, so this is my first time kind of doing this whole thing, but I got inspired by somebody else named Gasky, um, just a great rapper of mine. That we're the same age, and we just happen to grow up together. Um, in parallel, not in a literal physical presence sense, but we're just both the same age, and it just was really interesting that we're both um, went through the journey together. And I was able to connect with him musically, right? So if you go look him up, he's done these series before. And at really looking at philosophical discussions that he's had throughout his life. And I kind of wanted to do the same. Um, and the topic that has been on my mind for most of my life, um, and has been an internal and external discussion to me and to others, is being an emotional person, um, which comes with its pros and cons, right? But when I always had that open discussion, I've always wanted to have that open discussion about being an emotional person, because there's a lot of people out there. Um, Being an emotional person can be a really good thing, but it can also be a really bad thing. People question being that emotional person that they are, whether why they became that person, and it's basic. It's how you're raised, and through the life experiences through your life that you went through, you became the person that you are today. And I think it's great to have that discussion, and I think it's great to have this discussion in um, my bedroom, um, because it's also the physical representation of my emotional personality, and it's almost my entire personality. Um, as you can see, I got some purple in here. I got some black, and um, if you to see the other furniture, it's very Victorian. Um, it just exudes, if you look at it, a very emotional state. Um, you know, and people look at it and see it as like a very like sex dungeon thing or not. It's not really that. I've always wanted my room to exude my personality, of which it is an emotional one. Purple being my favorite color. Some great vinyls in the back. And then a picture of me and maybe some other portraits and stuff in this bedroom. I'd have to explain the picture of me later, but I promise it's not obnoxious. It's very sentimental. Uh, it's not an ego-driven thing. I promise you. All right, with that over with, I've always wanted to, you know, just have this discussion about that, about being an emotional person. Um, but let's honestly start with the facts, right? Of being an emotional person that you have to understand is, I mean, like with almost every personality, it's a pro and con. Um, well, let's start honestly with the cons, because I think that's the best way to look at it. Is look at your faults first and find out what you could do better. Let's just brutally put that out there. Being an emotional person, you are a manipulative person, or you can be a manipulative person. Not every emotional person. It depends again on your upbringing, but not every emotional person is like that. But in general, in the general sense, you get people who are generally manipulative people, because they have a strong emotional attachment to others. Um, it just comes with the territory that if let's just say something is at a threat of being lost, um, to us, we'll do everything in our power to try to keep that. And that includes being manipulative, um, in many ways, towards individuals. So that's the downside. Um, let's talk the upside, right? Um, emotional people generally the best, um, most loving, the most loving, caring, and passionate, and truly dedicated individual towards others that they trust and love. You wouldn't find any other person um, that would share that quality more than an emotional individual. And we're talking, if you're big in horology, it's cancers, right? Of which I don't necessarily believe a ton of that, but it just happens to sync with me when I read it. So, um, but so those are the two downsides, right? And this video is more about to understand, emotional people also get themselves in situations. And I can say in my life, have gotten themselves in situations that is emotionally driven, that any logical person would have stepped aside or not made that decision. But an emotional person does not work that way. They base their decisions, they base their logic on emotions. And those decisions, again, are not logical in many situations. I can say in my life, a situation that I put myself in, that almost cost me my life, was based on an emotional decision. And because of that, I, for many years, decided or discussed internally and externally to myself and to others, and questioned whether I should be this emotional person, like whether I should fundamentally change who I am. And that debate was always in my head since those events, uh, for many years. It has been about 9 years, and it hasn't really changed until recently. And I believe that there's other people that question their emotional state, um, as an individual. And so I kind of want to make this video and ultimately say, um, that through that many years of pondering and questioning myself and who I am as an individual, that I want to confidently give to others that are going maybe through the same thing, that and I think this goes to anybody, whether you're emotional or not, but you shouldn't change who you are. Many people might not be a big believer in God, um, but you can at least think that things in life don't just randomly occur. There's a rhyme and reason. There's a cause and effect to everything, and on why things occur the way they do. And that's what I've learned in my life, whether it's um, a truly terrible thing, you learn from it, or an experience in your life, you learn from it. And um, you know, when I was a child, all the way up till now, the ways in which I was raised, the ways in which I experienced life, led me to be the emotional person that I am for a reason. And I, through years of thought and pondering and questioning, came to that conclusion. Now, my life isn't totally complete yet. Um, Obviously, I'm a single individual. I had, probably wouldn't have time to be having this discussion about questioning who you are, if or have a thought space, if I was happily with somebody. Um, I've been actually in one relationship in my life, and I'm 30 years old, and it was only a year and a half. we can have a whole separate conversation on whether that's a good approach either. Um, Bottom line, I think it is, but that's a whole separate discussion. But it's going back to being that emotional person that you are, whether you should be that person or not. Because again, the experiences that you probably put yourself in, or many people have put themselves in an illogical situation because of their emotions. Question that. And I could just say confidently that you don't change who you are. I always tell people, in essence, the worst things that ever happened to me ended up being the best things that ever happened to me. Now, that's a pretty loaded statement. There's a lot more to it. Um, because simply people don't simply rebound off of their worst experiences in life. There's a deeper discussion to be had in terms of how you can rebound from that in the emotional and mental state that you have to be in for that. But that is, in essence, what I learned off of my experience after all these years of almost losing my life over my emotional decisions. And the second part, first one is don't change who you are. The experiences that you experienced are for a reason. Whether it might not make total sense in the moment or make total sense right now, it eventually will, and I promise you. You have to believe and have faith. Second thing is being an emotional person is not a bad thing. Now, I did mention, right, that there are cons in every personality. In an emotional personality, they tend to be manipulative people. And um, that is a bad thing. But if you are truly a reflective and always continuously reflecting individual that always is looking for self improvement, you have the mindset that you have flaws. You know you are a flawed individual. And again, this goes for anybody, not just an emotional, excuse me, not just an emotional person. And you are a flawed individual, but you have to continuously reflect on your mistakes, continuously reflect on your decisions that you've made um, throughout life, and hopefully have the insight um, and hopefully foresight that your actions that you've made um, can be bad or manipulative. And it goes to as simple as when I was with somebody in the past, um, I luckily in the moment realized it, um, but I was being manipulative towards a person. They recently got out of a relationship, and I happen to confess, my feelings towards them that I've had as a friend for a while, right? And this was in a very vulnerable state of hers, and I happened to push my ideals, and in essence, I tried to convince her that I was her solution during a vulnerable time. I think that is clearly manipulative. That bout went on for about a full day, and then at the end of the day, it didn't come into my head until it it came to kind of came to a climax when we became like frustrated with each other because of our conversations that we were having. And I luckily realized it right then and there. I reflected. I looked at what I was doing in that day. Because again, when people are manipulative, they may not consciously know what they're doing. It's a subconscious thing that you do as an individual, emotional person. But it still makes it wrong. It still makes it bad. But I think a mature and smart individual, has matured in life, can have humility for their bad actions. And luckily that day, in that example, and usually it maybe takes longer than that, but I happened to realize it that day, and I apologized to her. And that was that's the big thing, is what I'm trying to get at, is everybody has flaws. Emotional people have flaws. Don't be um, put down by the fact that you as an emotional person can make bad decisions, uh, say bad things. Don't let that put you down. You have to, as a mature and smart individual and wise individual, look back on your actions, reflect on them, and understand what you have to do better and how you take those cons as an emotional individual and reduce them as much as you can over life to be a better individual and a better person. And that's the second thing. And the last thing is wear it with pride. As I look in his bedroom, right? This isn't your average male bedroom, right? You can kind of look at it, right? Purple lights, um, some Art Deco furniture, Victorian furniture. Um, I got some very interesting. Females more prone to that. Again, you see it. It's a very emotional state. Wear that shit with pride. Don't hide it. If you are an emotional, and that, again, that doesn't go. That's just not for individual emotional people. That's everybody, man. Be proud of who you are. Be Have humility for your past mistakes and your flaws, and always continuously reflect to be the best version of you that you can be, day in and day out. Because that's what we're here on this earth, man, for, is to be the most honest version and best version of yourself, and to go out there and make an impact on others. Um, Again, starting with the first thing is who you are as an individual. Yes, I'm an emotional individual, and I'm okay with that. And I love that about me. Hopefully, this did something for y'all. I got some inspiration, and it's almost something that I've had in my mind for years, and I've always wanted to kind of express it in some way or manner. I'm not going to say who I am. Um, I'm just going to post this anonymously for anybody that happens to watch it. See y'all.